Good morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. It's the start of a new trading day. Let's kick off with our banner story. Factory output rebounded in April. That's following 13 straight months of a contraction. Data from the PSA's monthly integrated survey of selected industries showed that factory output, as measured by the volume of production index, surged 162% in April. This is a reversal from the 73% decline in March of 2021, as well as the drop of nearly 65% in April 2020. 20 out of 22 industry divisions posted year-on-year growth, including basic metals, machinery and equipment, and furniture. The Federation of Philippine Industries hopes to see a further rebound in manufacturing as the vaccine rollout picks up and economic activity recovers. However, the group says recovery might be subdued given the reimposition of stricter lockdowns in Metro Manila and nearby provinces, which was from late March till mid-May. Manny Pangilinan has officially stepped down as president and CEO of PLDT-Smart. He handed the reins over to Panlilio at the firm's 2021 annual stockholders meeting yesterday afternoon.
I will continue to be your chairman, and as such, I will always follow the affairs and fortunes of our company with profound interest. It has been an unparalleled privilege to have served you and this company as your CEO. It has indeed been a remarkable walk with destiny.
Pangilinan first became president in 1998 and again in 2015. He hands over a company at peak performance, with the telco posting record high service revenues for 2020. It says it will spend between 88 to 92 billion pesos in capex this year. That's mostly to expand its 5G network. But the telco is also facing new competition from Lito Telecommunity, as well as from smaller upstarts like Converge. The 57-year-old Panlilio says he has three key priorities as CEO.
To innovate, continue to innovate, and we need to improve our customer experience. And if there was one area that we should be world-class in, it should be customer experience. We want to push digital as a way to really interface and engage with customers.
Together with the rest of the MVP group, PLDT says it has procured more than 1 million doses of vaccines for their staff and their dependents, as well as for the public as part of its CSR efforts. Okay, very quick peek at PLDT as MVP hands over the reins here, up by 0.08% this morning to 1,315 pesos. Now we've got more economic data to be breaking here. That is the trade data. First of all, exports in the month of April rising 72.1%. However, this is lower than the analyst estimate, which was 90.4%. And this versus, however, the revised 33.3% print in March. So higher than March, but nevertheless lower than what was expected. Imports, on the other hand, rose by 141%. This versus the estimate of around 147%, and nevertheless still much higher than the 22% year-on-year print we saw in the month of March. And this brings our trade deficit narrowing to $2.734 billion. That's from a revised deficit of $2.752 billion in the month of March. Again, a narrowing trade deficit, exports and imports jumping, but lower than what analysts had expected. Let's see how our market is reacting to all of this, economic barrage of news, so to speak. Actually, quite positive, at least for the first 4 minutes of trade. 68.15. Firming up there is up by 0.09%. Now recall that yesterday we were benefits of bargain hunting, at least the index was. That's as blue chips lifted the PSE back above 6,800 levels. Nevertheless, thin turnovers pa rin. That's just around 5.3 billion changing in trade. Now let's take a quick peek at some sectors that I wanted to watch out for here, particularly energy. That's actually been on a radar as of yet. This is EDC, the Energy Development Corporation, has said that they're planning to raise up to 15 billion pesos in ASEAN green bonds, and the SEC has now approved that, and the proceeds will be funding geothermal growth and capex. Meanwhile, still on the topic of renewable energy, you've got SMC, and they are starting to do their battery build out. So that is a $1 billion battery build out planned by San Miguel. And the energy storage company called Fluence is the one commissioning the first two batteries. That's a 470 megawatt order from San Miguel's power unit, wherein each battery can store 20 megawatt hours. What that means is it can power 13,000 homes. So again, it's part of a $1 billion program of San Miguel to smooth out basically the solar and wind power, which have been intermittent. Fluence is actually a joint venture of Siemens and AES, and it plans to finish the installations by July of 2022. And finally, just a quick peek at AREIT and Ayala Land. This, as Ayala Land has now transferred 15.46 billion pesos in assets. I'm going to pull out the one-day chart for you guys so you can see how they're trading this morning. Take a look at AREIT surging there at the open here. Now, that will boost the builder's stake to 66% from the previous 51%. The assets were swapped for 483.3 million AREIT shares, trading at 32 pesos each, a discount to what it's trading now at 36 pesos and 45 centavos. Let's check in on the biggest headlines we are watching this morning. The Transportation Department has inked a deal with the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or the OWA, to help displaced OFWs find jobs in various transport projects that are underway nationwide. Now, the Philippine Star reports that the agreement seeks to provide pandemic-displaced OFWs employment opportunities in the agency through seamless reintegration. Now, under that deal, the DOTR will provide OWA with a list of vacant positions OFWs can apply for depending on their skill set. The agency will also inform OWA of other projects that may benefit the OFWs. Transportation Secretary Artugades said at least 200 former OFWs have already been employed in the PNR Clark Phase 1 project. He said 2,000 more jobs will open up once the project becomes operational, and OFWs will be prioritized in the hiring process. Tugades said that hiring displaced OFWs for opportunities under the Build program is a win-win, where OFWs no longer need to go out of the country while the government gets the workforce it needs to finish various infrastructure projects. Now, the Bangko Sentral has told lenders to accept the national ID as the sole proof of identity while opening an account. The central bank said that BSP-supervised financial institutions could face penalties if they refuse to recognize PhilSys for their Know Your Customer process. Banks are also allowed to do online or offline authentication procedures to verify the identity of an individual presenting their national ID as proof of identity. Data from the PSA showed that nearly 104,000 national IDs have already been distributed. That's as of May 15th. This as the government targets to register 50 to 70 million Filipinos to the PhilSys by the end of the year. Now, still on the topic of financial inclusion, online banking has skyrocketed during this pandemic, with one brand that launched during the lockdown riding that wave. Now, here to chat with us about Diskartech and other digital pivots of RCBC, we have with us Lito Villanueva. He's the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer. Hi, Lito, and welcome back.
Hi, good morning, Danie, and thank you for having me again this morning.
Lito, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I was part of this Diskartech launch as its host. It was one of the first events that I shot from home, in my living room. So I'm so excited to find out how the brand is doing today. Give us a roundup, statistics, users versus your targets.
Yes, in fact, thank you so much, Danie, and of course for your participation during that very historic moment for us when we launched Diskartech in the middle of the pandemic. in July last year. And in fact, just to update everyone about the progress of Diskartech, we now have over 4 million downloads and over 3 million registered users. And in fact, in terms of targets, we were able to hit our target since, no, in fact, for last year, we were able to hit it in less than 5 months. No? And in terms of number, no, in terms of the subscriber base. And still, the good thing here is that 80% of our subscriber base would be belonging to the what we call the millennials, and mostly of them would be part of the Gen Z, Generation Z, no? And 70% of our base would be coming from outside Metro Manila. So that is really meant for the mass market.
Lito, now there are reports from the BSP that new digital banking licenses have been approved, and even Deputy Gov Chuchi has said there are a lot of people applying for that. I mean, it's not a secret that online in terms of financial services is the way to go. How do you differentiate here? You're a relatively new player when it comes to online, total online banking, but at the same time, you're backed by RCBC.
Yes. In fact, Danny, we welcome this development. No? In fact, we've been waiting for this, and that's why when the BSP came up with this guidelines on digital bank licensing framework, we are now seeing at least three digital banks that have been approved by the Monetary Board, and latest of which would be the Uno Bank and of course Tonic. No? And the first one being the Overseas Filipino Bank, which is a subsidiary of Land Bank of the Philippines. And I think 2021, I would consider this year to be the year of heightened competition. So we would be seeing more digital banks or players in the digital banking space to be part of this ecosystem. As for RCBC, we know that we have accelerated our digital transformation. And with all our collaboration, our synergy, our cooperation with various fintech players, this is really the essence of what we call the open banking or open finance framework. So this is really something that would really redound to the benefit of every Filipino.
Lito, for our viewers to be clear here, is Diskartech an extension of RCBC services? Is it the app of RCBC, or are you trying to position against the fintechs a completely different platform? If you're a client of RCBC, you're not necessarily a client of Diskartech, and vice versa.
Well, I think we're one of the very few banks in the Philippines that would have two mobile apps. No? So we have two mobile apps. So
Okay.
one is the RCBC online banking or RCBC mobile app, which is meant for the affluent market. And of course, we have Diskartech as the super inclusion app meant for the mass market. So the whole strategy behind this is what we call, contextual banking. So while the affluent, while the mass affluent could be more or less around 2% of the population, you still have 98% of the population belonging to the mass market. So again, that is the very essence of what financial inclusion is all about.
And how do the services differ? Why is it easier for the massa, so to speak, or your excluded population to now get it on board your app compared to before? What makes it what's new, and how can you relate this with them having loans, especially during this period in pandemic when they need the money right away?
In fact, we were quite surprised with the warm reception of the public when we launched this Diskartech. And of course, this is the country's first Taglish inclusion super app, because we know that one of the barriers to entry is really communication. So we want, because of course, the everyday language of Filipinos would be Taglish, even Filipinos who are outside the country. So we want to make it as conversational as possible, na walang nosebleed, sabi nga nila. So we want to really engage everyone and to empower them so that they'll be able to make use of their mobile devices, not just for calling and texting or social media, but also for financial services. So you mentioned about lending. In fact, Diskartech is not just about payments. I totally believe with the print I just coined this. I called it PISIL. This would be the 5 pillars of financial inclusion. PISIL would mean payments, investments, savings, insurance, and loan or lending. So this would be the 5 components by which you should be able to provide to everyone in Juana de la Cruz, because payments is not the end all and be all. It has to be something that you should provide every unbanked or underserved Filipino in the country. So when we launched in fact, we're the first bank to be given authority or approval by the Monetary Board to offer to the public what we call the loans marketplace inside the Diskartech mobile app.
How will the national ID system change the game? Is that, we've been pushing for that, or you've been pushing for that,
Yeah.
ang tagal-tagal na, 107,000 if I'm not mistaken pa lang, diba? It's gonna take
Yeah.
a while. What's your timeline on this, and how are you, managing the app to be able to accommodate this if and when it comes?
Actually, I totally commend, national and the PSA, Philippine Statistics Authority, and of course NEDA, for making this bold move of covering 104 million right now in per their report, because they only, I think they only estimated or targeted that around 70 million Filipinos would be covered, no, or would be covered by this PhilSys ID in 2021. But I think they have surpassed their target, no, beyond the 70 million. But definitely, this is the most important, one of the most important components of how you can engage the Filipinos to be part of the formal financial system, because ID or KYC or know your customer would be the first barrier that we would be able to address because of the national ID system. And I heard you, reporting about the statement made by BSP Governor Diokno, mandating all BSP supervised financial institutions to ensure that they will accept the national ID or the PhilSys ID of every Filipino who would want to open an account in any of this financial institution.
Okay, so hoping that actually jumpstarts even more
Yes.
users onto the platform, because it's such a bottleneck. And finally, Lito, before we let you go, just a quick update on the partnerships of RCBC with the government when it comes to ayuda distribution. It's been contentious, diba? Like, how do you get ayuda? Some have even had to line
Yeah.
up just to get ayuda. The budget has not been disbursed. It hasn't reached the pockets of consumers. How are you aiding in this regard?
Well, I think RCBC, I think our government partners, particularly DSWD and the Department of Labor and Employment, are actually happy with our performance in terms of us being able to disburse the ayuda digitally. No? In fact, just to give you an update, we now have disbursed in excess of about 15 billion pesos to around 5 million household or families heavily impacted by COVID-19. So that would translate to something like over 20 million individuals across 72 out of 81 provinces in the country. So I think this is actually a great, small or simple contribution of RCBC to the national government in terms of really aiding the government in disbursing this emergency cash subsidy to our families, to our poor and vulnerable families in the Philippines.
Thank you so much for that update. Keeping you busy there, Lito Villanueva, Executive VP and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer of RCBC.
Thank you so much, and good morning.
And that's the first look into the business day. Today is Wednesday, June 9, 2021. Catch Business World live for the market close. That's at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.